There is a difference between what is alive and what merely persists. Ancient wisdom never confused the two. Vitality is not the same as survival. Survival can continue long after life has withdrawn. Bodies can function, societies can operate, words can repeat themselves. But aliveness, true animation, requires circulation, responsiveness, and renewal. Without these, even living flesh begins to behave like dead matter. This episode turns attention toward vitality itself, not as energy in the abstract, but as a measurable condition that flows through cells, metabolism, breath, and awareness. What is consumed shapes what circulates, and what circulates determines whether life is being lived or merely maintained. Within the Gospel of Thomas, a non-canonical saying collection attributed to Didymus Judas Thomas, preserved in early Syrian Christian communities and later Coptic Christian tradition, the Rabbi Yeshua of Nazareth, the Hebrew teacher of Galilee, speaks directly to this distinction between living and dead nourishment. Whoever has come to know the world has found a corpse, and whoever has found a corpse, of that one the world is not worthy. Gospel of Thomas, saying 11, a Syrian Coptic Christian tradition. This is not contempt for the world, it is diagnosis. A corpse is not something evil, it is something no longer circulating life. When awareness feeds on dead pattern, expired beliefs, inherited identities, rigid routines, those forms do not come back to life on their own. They are animated by the vitality of the one consuming them. Life force is diverted into maintaining what no longer breathes. This is how cultures fossilize. Civilizations do not collapse only from violence or invasion. Many calcify from internal repetition. The same ideas are rehearsed. The same fears are recycled. The same identities defended long after they have ceased to nourish. Vitality is spent preserving structures that cannot respond, cannot adapt, and cannot grow. In biological terms, this resembles metabolic stagnation. Cells depend on constant exchange, nutrients in, waste out. When circulation slows, toxicity accumulates. When metabolism stalls, life becomes brittle. The Hebrew understanding of life, expressed in the concept of life as movement and plurality, never defined vitality as static perfection. Life was always plural, dynamic, and relational. Breath moved, blood flowed, rest alternated with labor. Even Sabbath was rhythmic, not rigid. This understanding survives beneath the words attributed to the Nazarene rabbi. The danger is not mortality. The danger is animation without renewal. When the dead ideas are eaten, they demand energy without giving nourishment. When dead routines are followed, they require obedience without offering growth. When dead identities are protected, they consume vitality while claiming to preserve selfhood. The second activated saying into this episode addresses sustainability directly, using the language of stability rather than transcendence. And it says, "There are 5 trees in paradise which do not change during summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death." Gospel of Thomas, saying 19, a Syrian Coptic Christian tradition. Later, theological traditions, particularly within institutional Christianity, often relocated paradise into an afterlife and interpreted immortality as endless duration of flesh. But within earlier Jewish and Jewish Christian symbolic language, paradise referred to an ordered inner landscape, a cultivated garden of systems that support life. The 5 trees are not rewards, they are functions. They represent stable inner processes that sustain vitality across seasons of change. Breath continues whether conditions are favorable or harsh. Movement persists in some form even during limitation. Nourishment adapts without ceasing. Rest restores without apology. Attention governs without exhausting itself. These systems do not change with fashion or ideology. They are not dependent on belief. They operate whether named or ignored. When they are honored, vitality circulates. When they are neglected, life force leaks away. This is the meaning of not tasting death. It is not exemption from biological ending. It is exemption from internal collapse. A system that renews itself does not rot while standing. Modern biology quietly confirms this ancient insight. Cells remain alive through metabolism, through continuous exchange, breakdown, and rebuilding. Autophagy clears debris. Mitochondria convert fuel into usable energy. When these processes fail, tissue degenerates even if the organism remains technically alive. Vitality is a process, not possession. The Nazarene rabbi teaching does not invite escape from embodiment. It calls for inhabiting it fully. Living flesh requires living inputs. Dead food, whether literal or symbolic, burdens the system. Life force becomes maintenance instead of expression. This reframes immortality entirely. Immortality is not endless extension of the same form. That would be stagnation, not life. Immortality in this framework is sustainable aliveness, the ability to renew, respond, and remain present without collapse. The Hebrew scriptures already hinted at this. Longevity was never praised without wisdom. Long life without alignment was considered burden, not blessing. Vitality mattered more than duration. This episode stands at the center of the series because it exposes a quiet exchange happening constantly. What is consumed becomes animated. What is repeated becomes energized. What is carried forward receives blood. When vitality is spent animating the dead, exhaustion follows. When vitality circulates among living systems, resilience emerges. The 5 trees do not dominate the garden, they stabilize it. They allow seasons to change without threatening coherence. They ensure that growth does not require frenzy and rest does not require collapse. This is not asceticism, it is economy. Life force is finite in its expression but infinite in its renewal when allowed to circulate properly. Cultures that forget this burn out. Bodies that ignore this inflame. Minds that resist this fragment. The invitation embedded in this teaching is quiet and unpromising. Feed what feeds life. Not everything that exists deserves animation. Not everything inherited deserves preservation. Vitality is not obligated to sustain the obsolete. Living flesh thrives on living inputs. Dead food, whether ideas, routine, or identities, meaningless scrolling, demands payment without nourishment. Recognizing the difference is not rejection of the world. It is reverence for life. This is not about perfection. It is about circulation. The garden remains alive not because it is protected from death, but because renewal is continuous. The trees do not cling to old leaves. They do not hoard energy. They participate in rhythm. This is sustainable aliveness, and this is the difference between living and merely continuing. The spiral moves forward not by accumulation, but by discernment. Vitality returns when life is fed with what lives.